This time of year for Christians is called Easter, and this year for Muslims it's called Ramadan. In the weeks that follow Easter, Christians all over the world spend some time reflecting on the post-resurrection appearances of Jesus recorded in the New Testament. During Ramadan, Muslims all over the world use particular practices to pursue vividness with God in ways that they don't normally. This week, my reading included John chapter 20, verses 26 to 29. Thomas was one of Jesus' students, and because the crucifixion had been such a crushing disappointment to him, and because the memory of that night and the day that followed was so vivid, he openly stated that he needed an experience vivid enough to displace his doubt. I've said before on this channel that I am in pursuit of vivid experiences of the living Lord Jesus. Experiences vivid enough to compete with how powerfully I am perceiving grief and loss. So I'm identifying with Thomas right out of the gate. Let me read this to you. 8 days later, Jesus' disciples were inside a house again, and Thomas was with them. Although the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." And then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and see my hands, and put out your hand and place it in my side. Do not disbelieve, but believe." Thomas answered him, "My Lord and my God." Jesus said to him, "Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." The first thing that caught my attention as I was reading this was that the disciples were in lockdown. The second thing that caught my attention, perhaps. The first being that Thomas needed vividness, and I know what that feels like. The second thing, though, was that the disciples were in lockdown. They were hiding. They were hiding from Jewish authorities. They were hiding from Roman authorities. They were hiding. The doors were locked, and Jesus appeared amongst them. And this is what I'm praying for my Christian friends. I'm praying that while we are locked in our spaces, if our spaces be big, if our spaces be small, that we will really be together, and that Jesus will show up in our midst. He'll show up in vividness. It's interesting, the third thing that caught my attention was the phrase Jesus used. It's "peace be with you," but in Aramaic, which is the language he was speaking, it was something closer to Salam Alaikum, which is very much like the greeting that I gave when I lived in Central Asia. Salam Alaikum. Muslims everywhere greet one another with this phrase, Salam Alaikum. My prayer for my Muslim friends everywhere is that while they are in lockdown in this Ramadan, that Jesus will appear in their midst, and that he will say to them, Salam Alaikum. Somehow, in some way, that he will speak peace into the fear and the chaos. The next thing that stood out to me was that Thomas got his wish for vividness. Jesus said, "Put your finger in the nail hole in my hand and put your hand in the wound in my side. Experience the fact that I am with you, and let it dispel your doubts." Now, he does say that maybe it's more blessed to be able to believe without the vividness, but there's no rebuke for needing the vividness. That comforts me. But the challenge to me in this passage, and I would offer this to all my Christian friends and to all my Muslim friends, once Jesus has appeared somehow in vividness, in a dream, in a word from a friend, in a memory, in a vision, perhaps just in the way your heart heats up when you read the scriptures. Once Jesus appears in vividness, there is a choice that you are responsible for. He says it to Thomas and he says it to us. Do not disbelieve, but believe. Faith doesn't just happen to us when things are vivid enough. We still have to choose it. So my prayer for my Christian friends this Easter in quarantine is that when Jesus shows up in vividness, that you'll choose to trust him, that I'll choose to trust him, that I will not disbelieve and that you will not disbelieve but believe. My prayer for my Muslim friends this Ramadan in quarantine, when Jesus shows up in vividness, even if you have some internal reasons not to believe, that you would believe and not disbelieve. Faith is a choice given to an individual. I hope that we all choose well.